The fluorescent lights hummed overhead as I stared at the lines of code scrolling across my monitor, each function and algorithm a piece of my soul translated into digital language. It was 2:47 a.m. on a Tuesday, and I was the only one left in the TechFlow Solutions office again. This had become my routine over the past 18 months, staying late, perfecting the neural network architecture that would become our flagship product, while my business partner Derek Thompson schmoozed with investors in expensive restaurants downtown. I rubbed my tired eyes and leaned back in my ergonomic chair, surveying the empty open-plan office. Motivational posters about disruption and innovation lined the exposed brick walls, but the irony wasn't lost on me. The real innovation was happening right here, in the quiet hours when Derek wasn't around to take credit for work he barely understood. My name is Alex Chen, and for the past 3 years, I'd been the Chief Technology Officer and co-founder of TechFlow Solutions. What most people didn't know was that I'd also been the architect, lead developer, and sole creator of our proprietary artificial intelligence platform. Derek handled the business side, the networking, the funding rounds, the press interviews where he'd flash his practice smile and speak in buzzwords about revolutionary AI solutions. The next morning, Derek strode into the office wearing his signature navy blazer and that confident smile that had charmed venture capitalists out of $12 million in funding. His perfectly styled hair and expensive cologne announced his presence before he even spoke. "Alex, buddy," he called out, clapping me on the shoulder as I nursed my third cup of coffee. "Big day today. Board meeting at 10. Hope you're ready to dazzle them with the technical stuff." I looked up from my laptop where I'd been reviewing the latest performance metrics. Our AI platform had just processed its millionth transaction with 0 errors, a milestone that should have excited any genuine tech entrepreneur. But Derek's eyes were already scanning his phone, probably checking his social media metrics. "The platform is performing beyond our initial projections," I said, pulling up the dashboard. "User retention is at 94% and we're scaling faster than anticipated. The machine learning algorithms I implemented are actually improving efficiency by—" Great, Derek interrupted, not bothering to look at my screen. "Just keep it simple for the board, yeah? Not everyone speaks computer." I bit back my response. Derek had a talent for reducing complex innovations to sound bites, but lately his dismissiveness felt more pointed. Over the past few months, I'd noticed subtle changes in his behavior. He'd started referring to TechFlow as his company in interviews, describing me as a talented engineer rather than a co-founder. When tech journalists asked about the platform's development, he'd speak vaguely about our team's collective vision, while positioning himself as the visionary leader. The boardroom at 10 a.m. was filled with the usual suspects: Margaret Singh from Avalon Ventures, Robert Hayes from Tech Capital, and 3 other investors who'd backed us through our Series B funding. Derek sat at the head of the polished conference table like he owned the place, which, according to our incorporation documents, he most certainly did not. "Ladies and gentlemen," Derek began, his presentation clicker in hand, "today marks a pivotal moment for TechFlow Solutions. Our AI platform has exceeded all projections, and we're ready to discuss our expansion strategy." I sat quietly in my assigned seat, watching Derek present metrics I'd calculated and innovations I'd developed. He spoke confidently about our breakthrough algorithms and revolutionary approach to machine learning, never once acknowledging that every line of code had come from my keyboard. "The beauty of our system," Derek continued, clicking to a slide that showed my neural network architecture, "lies in its elegant simplicity. This wasn't just programming, it was digital artistry." Margaret Singh raised her hand. "Derek, can you walk us through the core algorithm?" Our technical advisor had some questions about scalability. Derek's confident smile flickered for just a moment. "Alex can handle the technical deep dive. That's his specialty." I stood up, moving to the presentation screen. For the next 20 minutes, I explained the intricate details of the system I'd built from scratch: the machine learning protocols, the data processing pipelines, the predictive analytics engine that made our platform unique in the marketplace. The investors leaned forward, asking increasingly sophisticated questions that Derek couldn't have answered if his life depended on it. "Impressive work," Robert Hayes said when I finished. "This level of innovation is exactly why we invested in TechFlow." Derek's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. After the investors left, he asked me to stay behind in the conference room. The afternoon sunlight streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows cast long shadows across the polished table. "We need to talk," Derek said, his tone suddenly formal. Gone was the buddy-buddy facade he'd maintained for 3 years. "About the expansion strategy?" I asked, genuinely confused by his shift in demeanor. Derek walked to the window, his back to me. "Alex, I've been thinking about the direction of this company. We're at a crucial juncture and I need to make some difficult decisions." Something cold settled in my stomach. I'd heard this tone before in other contexts, when Derek was about to deliver news that would benefit him at someone else's expense. "TechFlow needs a singular vision moving forward," he continued, turning to face me. "The board agrees that too many cooks in the kitchen can spoil the broth." "What are you saying, Derek?" I kept my voice level, though my heart rate was accelerating. He sat down across from me, adopting what I recognized as his negotiation posture. Leaning back slightly, hands steepled, that practiced expression of manufactured concern. "You're out, Alex. This was always my vision and it's time for me to execute it without complications." The words hit me like a physical blow. I stared at him, processing what I'd just heard. 3 years of partnership, 3 years of building something extraordinary together, and he was discarding me like outdated hardware. "My vision," I repeated slowly. "Derek, I wrote every single line of code that makes this company valuable. The AI platform, the machine learning algorithms, the entire technical infrastructure. That's all my work." Derek's expression hardened. "And I brought in the funding, managed the business relationships, and created the market opportunity. Without me, your code would be sitting in some university research lab gathering dust." I felt a strange calm descend over me, the same focused clarity that came when I was debugging complex problems. "I see. And what about our partnership agreement? Our equity split?" "Your severance package will be generous," Derek said, sliding a manila envelope across the table. 6 months' salary, plus a confidentiality agreement. Very standard for these situations. I opened the envelope and scanned the documents. Standard termination paperwork, a non-disclosure agreement, and a check that represented a fraction of what my contributions had generated for the company. "You're buying me out for $60,000? I asked, looking up at him. "Derek, our platform is worth millions. The intellectual property alone." "The intellectual property belongs to TechFlow Solutions," Derek interrupted. "Everything developed during company time, using company resources, is proprietary to the organization. You signed those agreements when we incorporated." I stood up slowly, folding the paperwork back into the envelope. Derek was watching me carefully, probably expecting an emotional outburst, threats, or desperate pleading. Instead, I felt that familiar analytical mindset kick in, the same systematic approach I used when architecting complex systems. "I'll need to clean out my desk," I said quietly. Derek nodded, his relief visible. "Of course. Take your time." I walked back to my workstation in the main office area, where several employees were pretending not to stare. Word travels fast in a small company, and the tension from the conference room had probably been palpable even through the glass walls. Jennifer Liu, our junior developer who I'd mentored for the past year, approached hesitantly. "Alex, is everything okay?" "Just a change in direction," I said, pulling my personal laptop from my desk drawer. "Sometimes these things happen in startups." As I packed my few personal belongings, a coffee mug from my alma mater, a small plant my sister had given me, a framed photo of my family, I could feel Derek watching from his corner office. He was probably already planning his press release about TechFlow's streamlined leadership structure and renewed focus on market expansion. The irony was almost amusing. Derek thought he was acquiring sole control of a valuable company, but he was actually inheriting a house of cards built on intellectual property he didn't own. Over the past 2 years, I'd been quietly filing patent applications for the core innovations that made our platform unique. Not through TechFlow's corporate lawyers, but through my own intellectual property attorney, using my personal time and resources to document inventions that predated our formal partnership agreement. I'd learned this strategy from my previous startup experience, where I'd watched brilliant engineers get squeezed out by business-focused partners who contributed capital but no real innovation. The key was timing, filing patents for foundational algorithms before they became integrated into company products, establishing prior art and individual ownership of the core intellectual property. Derek had no idea that the company time he referenced in our termination meeting hadn't actually begun when we signed our partnership papers. The breakthrough AI algorithms that made TechFlow valuable had been developed in my apartment, during evenings and weekends, months before Derek and I formalized our business relationship. I'd been meticulous about documenting everything: timestamps, development logs, Git commits from my personal repositories that predated our corporate code base. I carried my box of personal items to the elevator, nodding goodbye to colleagues who looked confused and concerned. The elevator doors closed and I felt a strange sense of liberation. After 3 years of watching Derek take credit for my innovations, I was finally free to pursue something better. 3 days later, I was sitting in my home office, organizing my patent documentation when my phone rang. The caller ID showed a number I didn't recognize, but the area code was local. Alex Chin. The voice was professional, slightly nervous. Speaking. This is Marcus Webb from Webb Patterson & Associates. I represent TechFlow Solutions. Mr. Thompson asked me to reach out regarding some intellectual property documentation. I leaned back in my chair, a small smile playing at the corners of my mouth. How can I help you, Mr. Webb? We're conducting due diligence for a potential acquisition of TechFlow, and we've encountered some complications with the patent filings. Specifically, there appear to be individual patents filed under your name that cover the core functionality of the TechFlow platform. That's correct, I said simply. Pause. Mr. Chin, these patents could potentially create significant legal obstacles for any sale or licensing of the TechFlow technology. We need to understand the extent of your intellectual property claims. I'd be happy to discuss that with you. Would Thursday at 2 p.m. work for a meeting? Actually, Mr. Thompson would like to meet as soon as possible. Would this afternoon be convenient? I checked my calendar, which was completely empty since I was no longer employed. I suppose I could make time. 2 hours later, I walked into the conference room at Webb Patterson & Associates' downtown office. Derek was already there, looking less polished than usual. His tie was askew and I could see stress lines around his eyes that hadn't been there a week ago. Marcus Webb was a sharp-dressed intellectual property attorney in his 50s who got straight to business. Mr. Chin, we've reviewed your patent filings, and they appear to cover the fundamental algorithms that power TechFlow's AI platform. Can you explain the timeline of these innovations? I opened my laptop and pulled up a presentation I'd prepared. Certainly. The core machine learning algorithms were developed between March and August of 2021. Primarily during evenings and weekends while I was completing my previous consulting contract. I filed provisional patent applications in September 2021. Derek and I didn't sign our partnership agreement until November 2021. Derek's face had gone pale. That's impossible. We developed everything together after we incorporated. Actually, Derek, what we did after incorporation was integrate my existing algorithms into a commercial platform. The underlying innovations, the neural network architecture, the predictive analytics engine, the data processing protocols, those were my individual contributions to our partnership. I clicked through documentation that showed the development timeline, Git commits from my personal repositories, and correspondence with my patent attorney that predated TechFlow's existence as a legal entity. Marcus Webb studied the documents, occasionally glancing at Derek, whose confident demeanor was crumbling by the minute. Mr. Chin, what are your intentions regarding these patents? That depends on Mr. Thompson, I said, looking directly at Derek. I've received an interesting offer from Quantum Dynamics to license my technology for their enterprise platform. The proposed terms are quite generous, $15 million upfront, plus royalties. Derek's eyes widened. You can't do that. We have a non-compete agreement. The non-compete restricts me from working for direct competitors using TechFlow's proprietary technology, I replied calmly. But since the core technology is actually my intellectual property, licensed to TechFlow under our partnership agreement, I'm free to license it to other parties. Marcus Webb was frantically taking notes. Mr. Chin, are you saying that TechFlow doesn't own the patents for its core platform? TechFlow has a license to use my patented technology, based on our partnership agreement. But Derek terminated our partnership, which voids that license agreement. Technically, TechFlow is now using my patented technology without permission. The room fell silent except for the scratching of Marcus Webb's pen. Derek stared at me like he was seeing me for the first time. This is insane, Derek finally said. You can't just steal our company's technology. I'm not stealing anything, I replied. I'm protecting intellectual property that I developed and legally own. The same intellectual property that makes TechFlow valuable to potential acquirers. Marcus Webb cleared his throat. Gentlemen, we need to discuss resolution options. Mr. Thompson, the acquisition deal you're negotiating depends on clear intellectual property ownership. Without Mr. Chen's patents, TechFlow's valuation would be significantly impacted. Derek's confident facade finally cracked completely. Alex, come on. We built this together. Don't destroy what we created over a personal disagreement. I closed my laptop and stood up. Derek, you told me this was always your vision. You fired me because you wanted singular control. Now you have it, control over a company that can't legally use its own technology. Over the following weeks, the situation escalated exactly as I'd anticipated. The potential acquisition deal collapsed when the buyer's due diligence revealed the patent complications. 2 major clients canceled their contracts after learning about the legal uncertainties surrounding TechFlow's technology. Derek's attempts to develop alternative algorithms without infringing on my patents proved futile. The innovations were too fundamental to the platform's functionality. Meanwhile, my licensing deal with Quantum Dynamics moved forward smoothly. They appreciated working with the actual inventor of the technology, and their technical team understood the value of my innovations in ways that Derek never had. 6 weeks after my termination, Derek called me directly. His voice was hoarse, defeated. Alex, we need to talk. Can you meet me at the office? I arrived at TechFlow's headquarters to find it nearly empty. Most of the employees had been laid off as the company's financial situation deteriorated. Derek was sitting alone in the conference room where he'd fired me, staring at a stack of legal documents. The investors are pulling out, he said without looking up. Without clear patent ownership, they consider TechFlow too risky. We're shutting down next month. I sat down across from him in the same chair where I'd received my termination notice. I'm sorry it came to this, Derek. He finally met my eyes. Are you? Really? I considered his question carefully. I'm sorry you chose to handle our partnership this way. I would have preferred working together to build something great. You could have told me about the patents, he said. We could have worked out a different arrangement. You could have treated me as an equal partner instead of a disposable employee, I replied. Respect works both ways. Derek nodded slowly, looking older than his 35 years. What happens now? Quantum Dynamics has offered to hire the remaining TechFlow employees who want to continue working on AI development. Jennifer Liu and most of your engineering team are interested. They'll get equity stakes and the chance to work on cutting-edge technology. And me. I stood up, straightening my jacket. You're an excellent salesperson, Derek. I'm sure you'll find another opportunity. As I walked toward the elevator, Derek called out behind me. Alex, for what it's worth, you were right. It was your vision all along. I turned back to look at him one last time. No, Derek. It was our vision. You just forgot that partnerships require partnership. 6 months later, I was standing in the lobby of Quantum Dynamics' new research facility, watching Jennifer Liu explain our latest algorithmic breakthrough to a group of impressed investors. The technology we'd developed was light years beyond what TechFlow had achieved, unconstrained by Derek's short-sighted business decisions and powered by a team that understood the value of collaborative innovation. My phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. Saw the article about your IPO filing. Congratulations. You deserved better than what I gave you. Derek. I smiled, typing back a simple response. Good luck with your next venture. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's building something so extraordinary that your former adversaries can only watch from the sidelines, wondering what might have been if they'd chosen respect over exploitation. Derek taught me that business partnerships like code only work when every component is valued and properly integrated. The algorithm for success isn't complicated. Treat people as assets, not obstacles, and innovation will follow naturally.